Last week, the focus was line, and we looked at an animal skeleton for last class. This class, we're gonna take a step back and look at the broad shapes that make up animals. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. I wanna give a couple minutes. People are still kind of popping in and out. There you go. So what I have here, this is from the Preston Blair book. It's called Cartoon Animation. So this is going to be some of my visual aids for today. It's like the classic animator book if you're interested in drawing cartoons, particularly cartoon animals, because most of it is cartoon animals, but it has a lot of neat tips for drawing hands, simplifying your drawings, right? It'll give you kind of a step-by-step look at how to simplify characters and exaggerate characters, all that good stuff. So we're gonna start off class today by looking through some of the techniques in this book for simplifying body shapes. Because sometimes, even especially if you're looking at real animals, it's easy to get overwhelmed with everything that's going on with the body. So we're going to learn some techniques for how to simplify these things. So we're going to start with cartoons, but we're also going to apply these to photos of real animals because they kind of go hand in hand. These like cartoon animals didn't come out of nowhere, even though they look cartoony. A lot of them are based off of the real thing. So we're going to look at that today. I'm going to show you the front part of this page, this two-legged cat. I think that's given enough time, we can kind of full on start with the lesson. So he starts with step one with this like stick figure skeleton line drawing. So that's kind of like a simplified version of what we did last time. I know this cat is bipedal on 2 legs and we were drawing animals on 4 legs. But it's the same, kind of the same thing. You have a shape for the head and a line for the spine that goes through all the way down to the tail. I'll use this pointer. This is a pointer instead. All the way down through the tail. You have the shoulders, and then you have the hips. And then he simplified all the bones in the limbs and the arms and legs to just a line. So you can see where they go, see the gesture of what the pose is. And then on top of that, he draws in the basic shapes or the basic masses of the body. And then for the finish, you know, once he has that down the way the pose should be, then comes all the details, the little fur bits, the claws, the markings on the belly, and all those little detail stuff. But they don't skip straight to this step. They do the construction first, so we know exactly what we're drawing. And what we see over and over and over again, especially with cartoons, is a lot of cartoon bodies can be simplified down. I'm going to trace over it to this very particular shape. Like that. So if you have had a class with me before, you probably see me talk about pear shapes or bean shapes. And they can come in a variety of sizes. We're going to look at the varieties later. I'm just going to write pear. I'm just going to call it a pear for consistency for the class. But a lot of cartoon bodies are simplified down this way, and it may not look like much, but there's actually a lot going on here. We have a top half, kind of roundy half like this, and then we have a back half. What this is the rib cage, right? Like before with the skeleton. And then these are the hips, or like the hips and the butt, like fused together, simplified into one shape. Then there's usually a straight half and a curvy half, right? Sometimes they can be like in 2 lines. So this is the back or the spine, and then this is the belly. I'm running out of room. So it's describing a lot with a very, very simple shape, and you can change which half is the big half. I'm just going to do a really exaggerated pear. This is more like an upside down kind of pear shape.
The style of cartoon we're looking at kind of looks like Tex Avery.
It does. It look like Tex Avery. Yeah, Tex Avery used a style similar to this, which got used for the Looney Tunes, which Chuck Jones also worked on. So Chuck Jones worked in a very similar style too. So a lot of early cartoons used a style very similar to this. So I'm going to draw a couple different pairs. If you want to draw some pairs along with me. You know, you can draw maybe the top half is very skinny and the bottom half is thicker. You know, so just because it's some kind of a pear shape doesn't mean it's the exact same shape over and over. So you can get a variety of characters out of this that still feel solid, and the word we often use in cartooning is believable, right? It's not realistic, but it is based off of real shapes in real animals. I'm going to go through this book a little more, and let me find where the animal bodies are. This is a little preview. Here's a good example, right? Head is just a circle. Let me center this on the frame a little more. Head is just a circle, and the body is a bean or a pear. And it's kind of thicker at the top where the rib cage is and thinner in the back, right? But it kind of describes the pose that this character's in a very simple way, simple yet effective way. There we go. Hopefully the glare isn't too bad. So let's take a look at this dog in the middle. I'm going to trace over the major shapes. We have a circle for the head, and then an oval over here for the muzzle, which is like the nose and the mouth put together. Big circle for the rib cage. Dogs usually have a bigger rib section and then a smaller hip section like this. And when you connect them together, that's what the pear looks like. And usually the back will be a little bit straight. And then the belly, since this is a four-legged animal, the belly's down here, will be a little more curved. And what that does when you have a straight on one side and the curve on the other side, it gives the illusion of volume. It makes it feel more solid. We can do the same thing for the legs section. There's a straight side and a curved side in that full shape. This shape for the legs, it's like a curvy rectangle shape. That's what it's simplified as. And then I'm just going to draw the same thing on the other side for the back leg. And then for the front leg, he did two lines over here, because if you remember from the bones section, right, the arms actually start up here. There's a scapula and then bones coming down like this. For simplifying though, instead of starting the arms down here at the bottom, we know that the arms keep going along the side of the dog. So we draw two lines on either side to show where the arms start. And then the rest of the arms just simplify down into a rectangle.
Looks like
and
a pony.
same thing for the other side. It looks like what?
Looks
Sorry, I
like a
didn't.
pony.
A pony? A little bit, yeah. Is a lot of animals use similar. They follow the same pattern. So like a pony, if you guys have seen like My Little Pony, they're almost exactly these shapes. They're proportioned a little bit different because they try to make them look like baby horses as much as possible. But yeah, Laura, I agree as well. The if you've seen the My Little Pony, they're almost exactly these shapes. And then I'm just going to connect the head to the body with the neck. One little tip for you guys is things are rarely, especially in cartoons, are very rarely parallel. And what that means is that the lines match exactly on either side. You know, no half is thicker than the other. Usually on cartoons, you will have one side be a little bit thinner and one side being a little bit thicker, right? And what that does, it makes it a little more interesting, and it gives the drawing a little more volume. It makes it a little more solid, like that. Is that all the, oh, ears. Ears are like a triangle. I should draw the triangle first. Triangle that connect back to the head. So that's what differentiates it from a My Little Pony. My Little Pony would have a bigger head, and then the ears would be like this, and then they have really, really tiny muzzles, something like that, and huge eyes, right? This is a dog, so they just change the head for the most part. Let me pull up so you can see the, it's hard to get these in the frame at the same time. So those are the two back to back for the dog. Here's some smaller animals so you can kind of see how the bean works for this bunny that's standing upright. Still the same thing, it's just very tiny. There's a very tiny rib cage here and a very, very tiny bottom. Similar with the chipmunk down here. Let me draw over this bird. So this bird is very long and stretched out. It's got a long neck. And it's kind of the opposite of this dog. Tiny, tiny rib cage and then a bigger back half like this. And then the feet go out. My drawings are running into each other. There you go, like that. So that is this cartoony bird. I don't know what he's supposed to be. Some kind of bird. That's how the bean shape works for him. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Are there any questions on this so far? All right, I'm gonna jump to some photos of real animals. So we'll kind of pull that off. Here. Okay. So instead of a cartoon dog, this is a more realistic dog. But I'm going to try to draw as close as possible the shapes that we did on the Preston Blair drawing, because it all comes from the same thing. Let me turn off my layers. So I'm just going to draw a circle for the head. And the muzzle, I'm just going to draw as a square. So the nose and the mouth all fits into one shape. If you want to draw along with me, the spine goes through like that all the way through the tail. I usually wait and get a couple of shapes in before I draw the spine, but I just want to show you real quick kind of about where the spine is flowing. Rib cage about here, kind of like an egg shape. And then the hips in the back, much, much smaller. And then I'm going to turn this into the pear. It's more straight on the back, comes around, and then more curvy on the belly. Some animals are more like athletic looking than other animals. This dog is very athletic, so he doesn't have as much of a curve on the belly, but it is there. For the neck, I'm just going to connect the head to the body. For the legs, I'm going to call this the arms. I'm trying to be consistent. Call the front legs arms, even though it's a dog. Let's draw 2 lines. And then a big, long rectangle shape. I'm just going to divide most of the arm up from the paws. The paws, I'm going to make circles connected to a little triangle. Not triangle, rectangle. Like that. So for the back legs, this mass here is pretty big because there's all these muscles over here. And if you remember from the skeleton class, he's got a bone right here and a bone going back that way. So for my shape here, I'm just going to draw a big triangle. I'm not following the photo exactly. I'm simplifying. So instead of a rectangle, just draw a big triangle wedge shape that's connected to this pear over here. And then rectangle, circle for the paws. And that's how I would break down his dog.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How would you draw a character like Snoopy, for example?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's pull up a reference. Because Snoopy is still a cartoon dog and still a beagle, but a very different style. So let's see what shapes we can find for him. I need a version of this that I can draw over. So I'm just going to copy this image. Okay. Let's make it a little smaller so I can fit it on the screen. Nope. Oh well, it can go all the way to the bottom. It's fine. It's fine. So the shape that's very characteristic of Snoopy is his head shape. So he has a big like muzzle part over here and then like a little hump for the top of his head that kind of connects together, or you can even probably continue it all the way through. But that's the characteristic thing for Snoopy. It's a very, very specific shape. I'll pull up a side view later to get to that. So you could simplify the body the way we've been doing, where he has a pair kind of like this. You guys see that? And then he has more human looking arms and legs where they stick out. It's when he's up like this. And then he has little tiny cartoon fingers, you know, like that. So less like a realistic dog and then more like a human. But he still has kind of a pear shape thing going on. And then his feet are kind of one big oval. And then they just connect back into his body like that. Let me find a side view for Snoopy. Here we go. Yeah, so that's what I think of when I think of Snoopy. More so even than the body, because his body's just really tiny. He has a big muzzle, right? And then a little hump. And it all kind of flows down into his neck. So if you look, it's kind of like a bean shape going on even for Snoopy's head. Oops, I shouldn't have drawn. That was the wrong layer. That was the wrong layer drawn. Oh well. And then for this body, you could kind of see the masses for where the rib cage and the pelvis are. He simplified it even more into kind of like a box, because you're not seeing much of the body, like with the straight, the standing up one. Here he's sitting down, and because of his proportions, you mostly just see his feet going over his body, but it's still there. You still have a mass for his rib cage and then a mass for his hips. Yeah, that was a great comparison. Compare that to the real beagle. Right? Snoopy looks like a cartoon character, but there's similarities with the real beagle. Are there any other questions? No, I'm not seeing that. I have a couple more animals because I want to get a variety in here. So let's look at this elephant's body. So ignoring the head for right now, the most obvious circle that I see is like actually back here. And I don't quite know where like the hips or anything is yet, but I just want to make sure I get that mass. Oh, I'm doing it again where I draw on the wrong layer. I want to be on this layer. There we go. There's a big mass back here. And then if you ignore the ear, there's going to be a rib cage section somewhere over here. And you can kind of see the spine poking up, going into the head. But if you don't see it, you know there's going to be another circle in here. So this is what the pear looks like for this elephant. I'm going to erase the middle part. Right? Somewhat different than the dog, but it's still the same concept. And then from there, we can put in the legs coming off of the back. A long, long rectangle that's really thick at the bottom. I'm going to start the arms up into the pear shape. Long, long rectangle. You know, this one's a little bent. He's picking up this leg. Same concept, just a slightly different variation on that pear. For the head, if I was going to simplify this head, you know, I just look for where I can put in circles, because most animals have a skull, which can be simplified to look like a circle. You know, and then I know that the trunk is going to come down this way and the ears are going to come this way. Right. So there's no detail on this whatsoever, but you still can kind of tell based on the shapes. It's the gesture of an elephant. I can make him more of a cartoony elephant. Shorten the trunk. You know, whatever. All right, let's look at a couple more, but let's look at this bird. So birds are a little harder because they're all covered with feathers. So sometimes it can be hard to see what shapes make them up. It still has a head though, right? So we can simplify that head into a circle. This one almost looks more like a U shape like this. So I'm going to ignore the wings and ignore the tail for right now and just try to draw the body. So if you notice at the body, he still has a belly kind of on this side, and the bird still has a spine. So there's still going to be a straighter part up on the top. I could go in here and draw like, oh, here's a rib cage and here's like the back part, but it's so covered with fluff. And I'm trying to simplify anyway, that I'm just going to draw the whole body as one oval. Make this side straight so it looks like a spine. And then it keeps going. Oh, I went a little high. It keeps going to form that back tail. It's kind of like an arrow that points all the way through to the head. So I don't even have wings on here yet. Let's make a triangle for the beak. Right? And it's starting to look like a bird, even though there's no detail. For the wings, it just depends on the shape of the bird. I'm kind of seeing an oval right here. And then a triangle going back for those folded up wings. And then they do have feet. this one's blending in with the branch that they're sitting on. They do have feet and they do have legs that are like tucked up like this, but it's hard to see with all the fluff. So if the fluff is covering it, you know, you just find an overall shape for the fluff and then draw that. I'm gonna leave that up for a second and then pull up, I think we'll do one more. Let's do, because we haven't done any reptiles yet. I'm gonna pull this guy up. So this is a Komodo dragon. So it looks very different from the animals that we've been doing so far, but he can still be simplified very, very easily. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer. So just like with the dog, I'm going to simplify the head and the muzzle separately. I'm going to draw a circle. Ooh, I don't want that, no. Circle for the head, and then a circle for like his nose and mouth combined. Like that. And look where his arms are, right here. I know he's got a rib cage over here. And then I'm gonna draw his back over here. So he's just really, really stretched out, right? But he has all the same pieces. And he has spine that's gonna go all the way through. It's just very, very long. And then through the tail. And so my pear shape is going to look a little more stretched out than normal, but it's still going to have that straight back half and then a curvy belly going down into his back legs. And then I'll just draw the neck real quick while we're here, while we're at it. All right. So a very different kind of bean shape than what we've been drawing, but it's still the same concept. You know, and then the arms and legs are very hard to see. So I'm not going to spend that much time on them. They're just like rounded rectangles. Go down to the ground. This one's folded over. Like that. So that's the breakdown. Okay. Hopefully this is helping you guys as you figure out how to simplify animals. Were there any animals that anybody wanted to see broken down? I haven't been watching the chat.
A bandicoot?
Bandicoot. Let's see what we get.
You might get a video game character.
I know, I was thinking we're probably just going to get Crash. But let's see. This one looks good. Sometimes it's hard to find good reference pictures online. No, I don't see. A little bit. Look at this tiny little guy. Yeah, so the problem a lot with getting reference pictures is it's hard to find one that doesn't cover up the feet. But, you know, we work with what we can find. Short notice. All right. So like with mice and kind of like with the bird, this thing does have that same skeleton that we've been looking at over and over again, but it's a little hard to see because of all the fluff. It's like very fluffy. So I can see though, like obviously there's a head here, so I'm just going to draw a circle for Bandicoot's head. And then if you can see, there's a bit of a shadow in the fur that goes down like that. That's where his front legs or his arms, where those bones go over his rib cage. So I'm looking for those little clues along the fur. So I know his rib cage is about here, and then the back and the back legs are kind of merging together into one shape, but I'm going to separate them just to make them consistent. There's his back side. And draw the spine straight, and then his belly is all the way down here. So he's very, very round, more so than normal. And then I'm going to draw these back legs just as one big oval. For his muzzle, it's very triangle-y. It's kind of like an anteater. I'm just going to draw a triangle coming off of the head like that. And then same with the ears. Sometimes animals will have the same shape repeated, just in a slightly different way. So there's triangle, triangle, triangle. And then for these front legs, I'm going to draw a line here where I saw that shadow. And then I'm just going to draw a triangle for that front leg. Here's the neck. Triangle for the other one over there. Oh, forgot the tail. All right. Sorry, I made a bunch of extra marks. There we go.
Now could you do a cartoon shape of Crash?
Let's see how. Find a good one. Here's a good one. No? Yes? Okay, yes. So, okay, so obviously they took a lot of liberties from Crash Bandicoot to our real Bandicoot. They made him more human, right? He's wearing jeans and junk. But there are some similarities. Let's copy this image. Make this smaller. Mostly for the similarity is the nose for me. So our real life Bandicoot had that pointy triangle shaped nose. That's what I'm seeing right here. It's like a pointy triangle shaped nose. Back here would be the circle. I'm just going to draw what I think would be the construction for this guy. So circle for the head. It's a little hard to tell because his mouth is open. The triangle shape for the muzzle. And then he has a very cartoony pear shape for his body. So big rib cage chest area, and then smaller hip area. Oh, I do not want an eraser, thank you. And they made him very curvy. There we go. And almost no neck. He looks like a very muscular guy with this build. Usually when you want to draw like muscle bound characters or like bodybuilders, they'll have a really big chest.
Your audio's cutting out.
Oh no. Can you hear me now? about now? Can you hear me?
I can just barely hear you.
Okay, that's weird.
Oh, now you're back.
I'm back? Okay, good. Cut out. Anyway,
No, it's still cutting out.
It's still cutting out? Oh no. Okay, how about now? All right, Scott, can you hear me now?
Just barely hear you, like
Barely?
you're at the lowest volume.
Okay, I don't know how to fix that. Let me stop sharing for right now. There we go. Is that better?
Hear you, but it's very low.
Okay. Okay, did anybody have any questions so far? Maybe I can like type in the chat or just draw off to the side if the sound's going in and out.
It's getting better.
It's getting better? Okay, maybe it's just because of the screen share.
I have a question.
Yeah. Do we have a question? I don't know who.
Yes, that was me.
Oh, okay. Laura.
I think that was Nathaniel had a question.
Nathaniel, Laura. Okay. I couldn't tell.
Why did they make the difference between a realistic drawing and a cartoon drawing?
So I don't know how far back I should go. So the word cartoon actually just means in like the Renaissance period, the cartoon would be the drawing before it gets painted, right? So it's like a planning drawing. Nowadays we use cartoons for like, you know, these types of drawings, so like animation type drawings. So if you're gonna do an animated movie or like an animated short, you have to draw and redraw the character 24 times to get 1 second of animation. So, you know, if you had to draw a very detailed deer 24 times for every second of animation, you can do it, but it's going to take a very long time. And the chances are high that it's not going to look very good if you don't have everything in exactly the right place. So when you simplify and do it like a cartoony version where there's very few lines and they're all based, let's look at this like donkey, you know, where there are a lot fewer lines than on a real character, it's easier to draw it over and over and over again for animation. So part of it is just the reality of how much work it takes to do animation, but it's also aesthetics. So like how something looks. When something's simplified and this thing has very like baby-ish proportions, those are more appealing, you know, to us. So it's a lot more fun to look at. So there's different reasons. It's easy, you know, it's easier to draw and redraw over and over again. If you want to exaggerate, you know, and make things funny, it's a lot easier to do with a cartoon style than it is to do with a more realistic style. So they're good for different things, for different ways. Hopefully that answers your question there, Nathaniel. Cool. Did we have any other questions or any other animals that we wanted to see broken down?
Can we do a black widow?
The spider?
Yes.
Yes, cool. Yeah, like the variety. So this is going to be a little different because we didn't get into insects yet. Let me find a good picture for reference first, so they're not going all over the place. All right, so I'm going to screen share real quick just to show you what I'm looking at. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at for my spider reference. And then I'm going to draw it over here. So let's get rid of the book for right now. So I'm going to look at the body first. I think there are technically two sections to spiders or arachnids. I'm just going to draw what I see. There's like a middle part where the front arms connect to. And then I think that these are like pinchers or feelers down here where they bite. So I'm just going to draw it as a little U. And then the part that everyone remembers from the black widow spider is that back half. And then if you guys know the real scientific names for them, you can shout those out in the chat. But it's kind of like, I think like a shield shape is a good way of putting it, or a diamond shape that's a little bit rounded on this end. And then the hourglass, that red hourglass, goes on top of that. And then from there, it's just getting the legs in there. So I'm just drawing where I see them connect. They're segmented in 3 parts. It's 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts. And if I was doing like a more detailed drawing, I would make sure that these are symmetrical, right? So they're landing in the same place. But Black Widow has 2 long, they're long here, and then a little bit shorter towards the middle. So I want to make sure I'm making them the right length. I'm just drawing them as lines. And then they start to go backwards like this. So I'm just glancing back and forth from my reference to my paper for where I see the segments. Sometimes, if I want to be really accurate, I'll put dots where all the joints are and then connect those. So you can do that too. You know, these are where all the joints are. And there's the pinchers there. That's what I see as like a breakdown for the Black Widow spider. Yeah, insects and arachnids, which are spiders, a little bit more different, a lot more different than this because it's hard to pull a pear shape out of that, but they still have different sections that you can simplify. And then limbs coming off of that. we go. All right, are there any other animals we want to break down? Thank you for the very different one. Can you guys think of any other types of creatures we haven't looked at yet? Okay, so I have in the chat an I and I think it's Koti. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. If you guys haven't seen an I before, they are quite something. Let me find the best picture. They're always wrapping around trees and stuff. Try to find one that's its whole body. And I am struggling to find one that's the whole body. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share my screen to show you what I'm looking at. So this is an I, right? Isn't that crazy? Here's like, they live in trees and stuff like that. So all of the pictures that I find, they're wrapping around trees. Look at their huge eyes. It's like cute and terrifying at the same time. So the I that I'm looking at, he's like sitting up on his back legs, and then the front legs are down. I'm going to draw the shape I see for the head. Normally I draw the heads as circles, but I'm going to use a triangle for this one. Something about it feels very triangular-y to me because of the huge eyes. I'm just going to show you where I think the eyes go. And then the ears, just as triangles. And then the back is kind of doing this thing where it's hunched over and then comes back down. And then there's the tail out like this. I need to pull my camera back. You guys aren't seeing what I'm drawing. There you go. It kind of pulls around like that. So I know the ribs are back here going this way. And then the hips are down here. So it gets that hunched over. It's kind of like Gollum.
Move the camera over just a little.
Bring the camera over like this?
Right there.
Right there? Okay.
Just a little off screen.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep drawing triangles for this one. So front arms, they're triangles coming down like this that connect up into the body. Can't forget that part. And then I'm just going to simplify the hands as triangles too. The unique feature with the I is that it has this crazy middle finger that's really, really long, comes out like this. And what they use that for is they will tap against trees. And then if they hear a certain kind of sound, it tells them that insects are back there. So then they can dig through the trees with that crazy finger and get their meal. Yep, exactly. And then his foot, that's back leg, it's kind of folded up. So it's all contained into this oval back here. And then this is the back foot. I'm going to make it more of a rectangle, I think, back here. Here's the nose and then the teeth. So it looks even scarier in drawing form. It's great. That I think is my breakdown for the I. Okay, and I know we had one more. Let me get to that real quick. Let me see. I need a good picture. That one's pretty good because I can see the breakdown more. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. I think Coati is how it's pronounced. I'm actually not sure, but it's a type of like raccoon type creature. I think South America is where they're from. Bring this back. A sheet of paper. I'm going to turn my paper this way. All right. This one has a smallish head and then like a snout. It's kind of a triangle like that. And then it's looking downwards. That's why I drew the head down towards the bottom of my paper. And then its body is coming around like this. Sometimes I'll draw like where I think the spine goes. It's called a line of action, so it's where you think the action's happening, but I won't always stick to that. I'll find out later that I think it needs to be in a different place. There's the ribs. I probably made that too big. So I'm going to draw two straight lines for the back, and then this is the belly part. And then the arms are going over the body. He's on a rock. I'm just going to simplify as a rectangle, and then there's the paws. Same with over here. I'm going to draw a big mass for those back legs. Actually make it even bigger. And they're curled over and the paws are under it like that. So you can't see much of the belly because the arms and legs are overlapping. They look more like this, drawing the bones. Here's the neck. And tiny, tiny little ears. And then this guy has it's kind of like a raccoon tail, but skinny. So it's this big fluffy tail. Let me move it up a little bit. Comes around this way, and then there's rings around it. I'm just going to do little scribbles for those rings. The arms and legs are kind of hidden in the photo that I have. He's on a rock like this. And then the arm is like back here. So you're really only seeing this part. I should have labeled all my animals so I don't forget. Well. All right, cool. All right, so we got a real nice variety of animals in here. We have some that are like less common and some that are, you know, very common that people draw all the time. And we got spider in there, like we got all sorts of stuff. So I like looking at the breadth and variety of animals. We're going to be doing more of that next week, looking at color, because different animals will have different color schemes for different reasons. So that's what we're going to look at next week. So be ready for that. If you guys have any favorite animals, try collecting some reference photos of them, so we can kind of break those down like we did with the shapes. You know, we'll break them down with color and things like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Any last minute questions before we end class for today? Yeah, do we want to share?
Something?
I know we like to go long.
Yeah, so I recently made a new character. It's like this dragon snake thing based on a leviathan and a Jormungandr.
That's awesome. I love how like serpentine it is.
Yeah.
That nice like flow with the body. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Does anyone else want to share what they've been working on? Okay, does anybody have anything that they wanted to share before we go on to next week? Cool, okay. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye then. Thank you, Scott, for helping today. Thanks everybody for throwing out animals, some more bizarre animals that people probably haven't seen yet.
Thank you, Naylene.
I think someone has a painting.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, does
Thank
someone have
you.
a drawing?
Bye.
Yeah, I'm seeing your painting, Laura. That looks awesome.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah, I love the colors. That looks great. Bye, everybody. Yeah, so a bunch of people are spattering leaving.
Bye-bye.
Bye.